What qualifications would someone have to meet in order for you to consider them to be a friend? I've been thinking about this question a lot recently, and specifically how our criteria for what we consider a friend has changed over, let's say, the past decade. Ever since technology and social media really became apparent and a critical part of our lives that we use every single day, almost all day. And I think this holds a bit of a key to understanding why people feel so lonely today. I'm going to go over this a lot deeper in a video I'm putting out this weekend on my main channel. But let's talk about specifically the high maintenance friendship kind of situation that we're in right now, and how friends used to be developed in the past versus now. In the past, I think a lot of it was due to proximity and frequency. I think we just were around people more within our jobs, within community contexts. There were a lot more ways to see each other in person without having to put in nearly as much effort as we do today. So, for example, church, every Sunday, you see those people, you're conversing with them, you have similar interests, similar beliefs, and even though you meet with them just once a week, you'd probably consider a lot of people there to be your friend, even if you didn't hang out with them outside of church. Just being a part of that organization forced you to show up on a consistent basis, and it wasn't related to work. A lot of us now would consider our coworkers not to be friends. And this is also something that maybe was a bit different in the past. I think with the rise of remote work, we not only see the people we work with less, but I think the type of work we do also influences us to view our coworkers as less friends, but more like dispensable objects, as awful as that sounds. But maybe not even that, just people we don't really want to be around, and we don't have to force ourselves to be around as much anymore because remote work is such a big thing now. But it also has to do with the type of work we do, I think. I think a lot of corporate work and modern lifestyle repels the sort of casual conversations one might have or one might want to have in the workplace. And the generational differences between employees is also larger, I feel, now than maybe it ever has been for most jobs. I mean, you think about children doing work in the past, let's say like hundreds of years ago, or for the majority of the time we've been around, the adults would make the children do a specific type of work. They'd be around all children, and they wouldn't have to deal with kind of a generational difference in beliefs or lifestyles because the world was just moving a lot slower back then. Now we fast forward that to today, your typical office job, you're dealing with maybe a 60-year-old senior and you are 20-something years old, and your lifestyle, the fact that tech has consumed your life since you were in your teenage years, as opposed to this person who doesn't really understand how to use technology maybe, or just grew up in a completely different era. Like, it's very hard to relate to that person. So I think how we relate to people we interact with in our co-working spaces is different now from the past. And that's one part of how the people we are in close proximity with, at least sometimes, that one thing that is certain, which is work, has changed and offers less of a easy relatability to our coworkers and an easier way to connect. But then it's also the frequency with which we can just stay inside more. It's just easier now. You know, you want to DoorDash your food, you can do that. You want to talk to your friends online instead of in person, you can do that. And you want to go to the self-checkout line instead of the cashier, you can do that. That's what the modern world has given us access to. That's the price of convenience. The price of convenience and using less humans is that we interact with less humans. So it was very easy to maintain relationships in the past, just simply due to the fact that we were naturally with people more, and we were in closer proximity with them because we were literally closer to them physically, but also within our age ranges regarding the things we did. Now, school is the only exception I can really think of here. I mean, when you're in school, when you're going through middle school, high school, like most of us do, that is also a proximity thing that you naturally make friends when you're in high school or middle school, just because you're with people all the time. And it's so easy to maintain those friendships. Even if you weren't hanging out with a lot of the people you talk to in school, you'd still consider them your friends because you just see them all the time, which reveals that friendship has a lot to do with just showing up, with feeling that, oh, you're talking to this other person and you guys can have a good conversation and feel like you are not alone in this world. But once you get out of high school and once you go to college, if you go to college and you're not going to the same school as any of your friends and all of you disperse, that's the first time you get really hit with, oh, wow, a lot of the reason I had friends early on in life is not because I had great social skills and it was easy for me to connect with anybody, but because I just saw these people all the time and I was close to them all the time. It kind of required me to befriend some people just to survive in that environment. And that's no longer really required when you get to college. And then especially after college, you're in your 30s. Like, what do you do at that point to consider someone a friend and to really develop a friendship? So those are all things that are very valid reasons for why it's a little harder to maintain friendships these days. But then I also think we've kind of shifted our approach to how much effort is required to maintain a friendship because of that frequency, because there is less of a frequency now, and because of what we see on social media and how it influences us to think about what does it really mean to have a friend? And now this is where the rise of high maintenance friendships start to really show up. The paradoxical thing here is because we are all so connected at every single time in the day, and we can see what the people we know are doing at all times on social media, if they're posting on their stories, if they are active on social media, that kind of creates this really high expectation that if this person is active online, then they should be able to text me back or to make plans with me. You can see what other people are doing all the time now. And so if you see them having fun without you or relaxing without you, doing more things with their time that you wouldn't have been able to see in the past, it kind of creates this uncertainty and jealousy with other people. And you start thinking to yourself, this person has all this time to post on social media. This person has all this time to be on their phone or any other form of technology, and yet they can't text me back right away, and yet we can't hang out and make plans. And so therefore, I think our expectations for what we consider to be a friend and how much we have to invest in each other requires a not only bigger investment, but more of an effort through that investment. I saw a TikTok that I referenced in my main channel video you're going to see this weekend, where this girl was acting as the high maintenance friend. And she's like, you know what, I'm just going to play it on screen right now.
So when do you want to hang out?
What do you mean? You just got here. We are hanging out.
I know, I just want to get our next hangout on the books.
I don't even have my schedule yet for next week.
You don't have time to see me until next week?
It's Saturday. Next week is in one day.
That gives us a whole other day to hang out before next week starts.
But I can't hang out tomorrow.
Okay. Well, can we at least FaceTime pointlessly for a couple hours while not saying a word to each other and going on about our daily tasks?
Sure.
Yes.
Because we're no longer like seeing each other in close proximity on a frequent basis, it feels like you just have to invest so much through texting and through planning out hangouts, actively planning them out, which has always existed, of course. But, you know, let's think like 50 years ago. Because you don't have a phone, you are with your friend maybe once a week, and then you say to them, because you don't have a phone and you could only call them on their home phone, okay, so next week we're going to the same spot, same place, and it was easy to find these places. Yeah, let's do it. Okay. And then you wouldn't probably contact them until that next week, and you wouldn't feel pressured to look at what they're doing, to think about, are they hanging out with other people? Are they spending more time with other people than me? Do they invest more into their other relationships than me? These are all anxieties we have due to technology, which makes us set higher expectations for what we think a friend should be doing, which is to be, I feel like a lot of us think constantly like checking in on us, actively making plans. And this is all on top of the fact that modern life is just it's so busy. It's just full of busy work. It's just full of constant notifications and emails and working outside of office hours. So on top of everything I've already said, it's like you don't even feel like you have time to invest in something frequently, to the point where it does eventually develop into a friendship. And this is where I have to push back on something I said in a video, a few videos back. I'm not sure where it was actually, but I said something along the lines of platonic friendships are a lot like romantic relationships, in the sense that, you have to invest in this person and you have to kind of check up on them and communicate with them and care about them. But now I'm starting to realize, like, our friendships in the past did not require that sort of maintenance. They didn't, because it kind of wasn't possible for us to keep that high maintenance due to the fact that we weren't so interconnected. And also just because we will pretty assuredly see that person every single week just by virtue of needing to go out and do things and interact with people in order to get what we need from the world. So you need to be conscious of how social media, technology, all these things might be subtly manipulating you into overthinking the people you see and hang out with every single day, and how it kind of makes you automatically treat them as, just whoever. They're just whatever people, these are people I see online all the time, as we treat each other on social media like not even real people a lot of the time. That influences reality, and we don't open up as much anymore. We're not as willing to be vulnerable due to the fact that social media highlights more of our perfections, even though that doesn't really exist, than our flaws. And we're more susceptible to not being willing to open up, which is also really a huge part of friendship. Is, I think you have to share some common ground in pain and suffering in some way, or just open up about something you're vulnerable about, an insecurity or whatever. That's when you really start to realize, oh, this person's another human. And I really just want to speak to them and get to know them better. That's how you build trust in people. Vulnerability and accepting others' vulnerabilities is what breeds trust. And if we can't be vulnerable anymore, if we require so much of our friends in order for them to be friends, then friendships are going to be high maintenance. And most people aren't going to feel like friends. So what I would suggest is a couple things. First thing is just casually talking to people and having those low maintenance friends that you would still consider friends. I really like constantly seeing the same people and just catching up whenever that's possible. And the best friends are the ones where you could not see them for months and months, and then the second you reconnect and hang out with them in person, it's like you guys never stop talking to each other. And I think that's really possible. It's more possible than you think. And that's still considered a friend. You don't have to constantly check in on them and be talking on a frequent basis in order for someone to be considered a friend, I think. I think we need more low effort, low maintenance friendships where we can just talk to somebody casually and see them as a friend and consider that to be a friend, and not need someone to meet a bunch of our emotional needs and to fulfill some greater purpose. And that's another thing. Oh my God, this thing, man. It's great that people are starting to realize that who you surround yourself with is incredibly important. But now, especially in the self-improvement space, it's like, if this person isn't grinding towards their goals, if this person doesn't have a purpose or a passion, if this person isn't an entrepreneur and working on a business or doing exactly what you're trying to do, but better, that's another huge thing that stops people from wanting to connect with just a random person on the street or casual conversation with the waiter or in the cafe. Because if they're not achieving more than you, then it feels like, oh, this is a waste of time. What am I going to learn from this person? You start seeing friendships as very transactional. How can I network. It's more networking than building friendships. What can I get from this person? And I feel that's a deeply embedded sort of vibe going on within a lot of young people right now who see just hanging out with people and doing things without a purpose, just having fun, as not possible or a waste of time. I'm so glad I never got sucked in and invested too much into self-improvement type stuff, that I was an asshole, complete asshole to all my friends back home, or people who I've been friends with my entire life who aren't that into entrepreneurship or self-improvement or fitness or whatever. I'm so glad that I maintained those friendships. Even though I did have to distance myself, we're still friends, and I still love hanging out with those people. You don't have to have all the same interests and investments and passions and purpose in order to be friends with somebody. And I don't think that's a valid reason to just be an asshole and get rid of all your friends, like a lot of the online narrative wants you to do right now. And then on top of that, if we want to replicate the proximity in which people took advantage of in the past, the best way to do this, man, I've said it a lot, but you should create some kind of weekly commitment to a recreational activity. Ideally, something you're interested in, like drawing or hiking or rock climbing, whatever. Just join some sort of club, and due to the fact that you will be in proximity with these people, as long as you are talking to them, then it's going to be easy to build that friendship through that activity. Really easy. And then you can reach out after those things, ask to hang out when it's possible, but don't try to need a huge investment from everybody in order to consider them your friend. Don't put a bunch of pressure on people just because they're not responding right away, or it feels like they don't care about you, when that's really most likely just you talking in your head to yourself, creating these imaginary scenarios. I'm not trying to gaslight you here, but I used to do this a lot. It's most likely you overthinking, does this person really like me or not, because they're not texting me back after 2 hours, or they don't want to create this friendship and invest into it more. Like, that's probably not what's happening, but of course, don't constantly be in a one-sided relationship and feel like you're investing everything into a friendship either. Balancing those two things is going to be hard. But anyway, yeah, just go to some sort of recreational thing, something that gets you in close proximity with the same people, at least weekly, I would say, will help a ton with you if you're struggling with this whole loneliness problem that we're having in the current modern world. I am currently writing a novel on a 20-something-year-old anxious boy who is living through a post-pandemic world, and it has a cool sci-fi psychological thriller element to it, where he goes through a tragic loss, and through that loss, his mind develops the ability, it fractures into and develops the ability to see into a parallel reality. And in that parallel reality, he's going to try to find the thing he lost. It is something I've been really enjoying writing, and it's a huge project. If you want to follow along in the journey of me writing this book, you can subscribe to my newsletter, where I post updates on the book every week, and that is linked in the description if you want to subscribe. And of course, there's my Self-Mastery School, where we meet in video chats once a week, and we just talk about a lot of different things related to self-development, self-improvement. If you are looking for that thing that helps you be more motivated to go after your goals, to stay accountable towards the person you're trying to become, Self-Mastery School might help you there. Link in the description to that as well. Goodbye.